Welcome to another episode of The Next Generation. On the podcast today, I have the one, the only, the amazing Clinton Laflin. Clinton is a dear friend, and I am just so excited to have him on the podcast today to share more about his story. It's truly a powerful and impactful story for those of us who grew up in the livestock show industry or have shown under Clinton or just know him as a friend. It's something that truly has impacted me personally, and then continue to just like Clinton's a true friend in my life. And so it's really awesome that I get to have him on today to just share more about his story and his life, his background, all of those things with you guys. So Clinton, I won't chit chat too long. I'll let you kind of take it away, tell everyone a little bit about who you are and all the things.
Sure. Well, it's a honor for me to be on today, Lauren, and thank you for asking me to join you and the listening audience today. And really, it's been a very eventful life of mine from day one. But just want to, for those of you that don't kind of know who I am a fifth generation Angus breeder, and currently own and operate Seaboard L Cattle Company. Located north of Russell, Kansas, and I'm also a avid sports fan and currently work for Kansas State University Extension as a livestock extension agent for the Midway Extension District that would cover Russell and Ellsworth County. And so that's kind of what I'm doing currently. But for my background, I have cattle and horses on both sides of my family. We've had registered Angus cattle on my dad's side, which our fathers have been friends for a long, long time.
Yes.
and so we've got registered Angus cattle in our family history since 1900. And so we're actually the second oldest continuously operating Angus family in the United States today. And not to be outdone, my mother's side of the family, we've had a commercial cow-calf operation and have been located in the Flint Hills of Greenwood County, Kansas, since the late 1800s. And the cattle bug is definitely real for me. And my grandfather Bob Laflin always told me that cattle is in your DNA. You can't really escape it. And so growing up around very ornery and fun having entrepreneurs in my family, of course I become one. At this point. So it's been a journey, but I think with my ability to kind of to do those things with my family and also individually. It's been kind of a neat challenge. For those of you that don't know, I've got a mild case of cerebral palsy, so it makes me walk with a cane and a walker. And so I have to kind of think outside the box on doing some around the ranch and job things too within extension. But I'm pretty thankful. I've got a lot of supportive and bullheaded family and friends that won't let me say no, and I can actually figure out how to do some things. So, so it's not necessarily orthodox all the time, but we get a lot of stuff done.
I think saying like it's not necessarily orthodox all the time pretty much sums up your life. If
Yeah,
anything, the on like let's put emphasis on like the ornery and bullheaded part that Clinton shared in his story, because that is so true. And I think that that's probably been true your entire life, and what made you like just kind of the person that you are today of like I'm gonna figure it out.
yeah,
And you really had a family that facilitated that as well. I think like
yeah,
growing up within your family unit and then also just like within agriculture, it really like went to build on your life to be an independent entrepreneur who
yeah.
is gonna figure it out. Like it might be a little janky, but we're gonna
Sure,
figure it out.
sure. And that's one of those things like my mom and dad and my grandparents, when I was growing up, it would have been very, very easy for them to just say, "Oh, well, Clinton's got some physical challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and I become a shut-in that doesn't really have much to say about life or what I'm doing." And to their credit, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so it was like, so it was always a okay. You may not be able to do things like carry a 50 pound bag of feed somewhere, but you can figure out how to learn and help us figure rations. You can help us figure out breeding decisions, genetics, livestock selection, and they really kind of, and my mom, I mean, the number of hours that she spent when I was a kid, on speeches for 4-H and FFA, and dragging me to all these contests like National 4-H Roundup in Denver. When I qualified for that, it was never a look. You can't do this. It was just the understanding of, okay, you can do anything you put your mind to, but you have to be willing to work harder and more creatively than pretty much anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
because the only person that is doing things the way that you need to do them to get stuff done is you.
Yeah.
So so it was one of those things. And so that kind of, that ability to overcome some challenges and think outside the box, like you said, has been kind of a massive impact on my life. Because I couldn't necessarily escape cerebral palsy, but I could be successful in spite of it.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. You really like have used it just like as a testament as someone who's like knows you personally and is involved in your life. You wouldn't even know that you had cerebral palsy and that it was like a big like thing in your life unless you saw you walking around like a livestock show barn or something
sure,
like that. Like
sure, yeah,
you really haven't let it be an excuse for
right,
anything, and you've gone
right,
on to like understand that like yes, my journey is going to look a little bit different than maybe the people around me, and the paths that they take to get to XYZ like end goal, mine's going to look different, but we're still
right.
going to get there. And I'm going to figure it out.
Right, and so and that's kind of that's when I first was a kid and growing up. I mean, for a while I was scared to take risks, and it took me a while to kind of get over that fear of, oh God, I'm different. Yeah, yeah, but it doesn't bother me now. I mean, it's just kind of is what it is. And so, but I think it's also been an asset for me because it shows people that, okay, I think we have a bad habit of thinking that, oh, we have to be 6'5", we have to do this a certain way, we have to, yeah, we have to run 300 cows to be able to be involved in the cattle industry, we have to be the quote unquote stereotype of what we think about when we're involved in ag. And I mean, really, basically, my life goal since I became an extension agent is to be able to help kids, help youth, and help those around me figure out that, hey, I can be involved. Let me just figure out how.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what your last name is, how long you've been involved, you can do some things, and it's just figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah,
So
for sure. I think that that's so important to remember, like as young individuals in agriculture, is remembering that it doesn't have to look the same way that it did for our parents. It doesn't have
right,
to look the same way that it will for our peers around us. It can
yeah,
look like you have 20 cows in the backyard and you just enjoy advocating for agriculture and being a voice
sure,
and going on the road and speaking. Or
sure,
it can look like you are involved heavily in like your local groups and organizations and stuff like that,
right,
and you are the person that runs 300 head of cattle or something like that. Like it can look a lot of different ways, and that's, I think, a beautiful thing about agriculture is the broad aspects that we have to like diversify ourselves, and then just like the ways that you can be involved in agriculture, that you wouldn't even think of, like, or even fathom because you didn't even know it was possible.
Sure, and I mean, even you could even if I one thing that I've really focused on in the last couple of years with the economy and some things that we're working on is just being there for other producers. I think and just being an ear to listen because we've had mental health struggles in this industry for a long time, and I think you could focus on that, and I think what we're doing today is a great example of hey, if my story can help kind of motivate somebody else or give them a path forward on I can do this, then we've won the day
Yeah.
in my opinion. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to come on because it's as long as people have kind of an idea that okay, now I kind of know what I want to do, then they can figure out how to do it. And
Hmm.
so I think that's great about these type of podcasts, and so it just gives people a little bit of a different idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It just opens up our minds to something that we didn't even kind of maybe realize was possible because of the sphere and realm that we're currently involved in our lives and different things like that. And I
Sure.
think that like your parents also like from a young age instilled that in you as an individual, like you said, of like, hey, these are all of the options on ways that like you can get involved in our personal operation and then ways that
Right.
you will be able to continue to be involved in agriculture in the future. And I think that that truly goes into a testament of like, there, no matter what your limitations or fears or concerns are, or where your passions lie in agriculture, like there is a place for you. And there is a
Absolutely.
place that like you can make a real and true impact too.
Yeah, and I think and I guess one of my big pieces of advice is to anybody listening is that I think we never underestimate the ability of yourself to do what you need to do, and never underestimate your power to positively affect the people around you because I
Mm-hmm.
think if you just focus on being yourselves, and the biggest thing is figuring out what your strengths are, and playing to those strengths, and really continuous learning, and you can do a lot of stuff for sure. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like your job in K State Research and Extension definitely hits on that and that aspect of like the continuing education and research and everything in that aspect and working directly with those farmers and ranchers. And whether it's
yeah.
needing that they just need an ear and they just need to talk, or whether it's like, hey, how can we best move our feeding rations or our grazing protocol for the drought that we're currently in? Or different things like that, that really like shows that testament of continued education and as producers making sure that we're leaning on the resources that are available to us and around us as well.
Yeah, and that's a big piece that I really enjoy because I've got cattle in the same environment that I'm working with,
Mm-hmm.
producers on. So so I can really build a good relationship with those local producers and say, okay, this is kind of what I'm going through, and what you're going through, and these are the research backed resources that Extension has to be
Mm-hmm.
able to help you and so I think just being able to have that conversation and that platform is really what I enjoy about my job. And
Yeah.
and being able to help a local 4-H kid find a heifer, to be able to purchase and show and be able to because some of these kids, the county fair might be their, you and I's version of Denver.
Yeah.
So to be able to give them that experience, I think is another big piece. Yeah, because I really do like the youth development side of livestock, and so that's been a very fulfilling part of this job as well. That I can bring those kids. So.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think that you kind of like found your niche and place that you wanted to be involved in agriculture? Like growing up, you were obviously like involved in showing Angus cattle and like doing all of the things, being extremely involved in the American Angus Association through all of that stuff. You can touch on that part of your story if you'd like, but it's just like, where did you even kind of like be like, okay, this is kind of where I want to set my feet down. I want to
Sure.
like stay here in Kansas, and this is how I want to like kind of be involved in agriculture.
Sure. So I think it's definitely been a journey to get to where I'm at, and there's been some curves in my road, as there are for all of ours, I think. But it's one of those things. I think for me, I can look back to when I was a junior and senior in high school, and trying to figure out where I was going to go from there. I had two fantastic opportunities as a senior. I could either livestock judge in college or run for state FFA office at that point as a senior. And I'd really enjoyed FFA, and I'd always kind of knew that I wanted to be in ag, but at that point I was kind of like, okay, I don't know what that looks like, and you just have a lot of uncertainty. And then I think where I really started to gain some self confidence was when I decided to make my own decision and say, "Hey, I'm going to go livestock judge for Chris Mullenix at Butler Community College," and then so that's kind of what started my path, because then I started to figure out that, hey, okay. Because before then you have kind of the image in your mind that you can't necessarily be involved in production ag if you have physical limitations. Well, the big thing about Chris and being on that judging team is that I really kind of found a level of competence and joy in judging livestock, and so that's where that kind of started. And then I went to go to Oklahoma State University, and buck the trend of my family and not go to K State. Uh, wasn't real
Don't
sure.
worry, all you K stayers. We still give Clinton a hard time for it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if my grandmother was ever going to cook for me again, uh, but but she did, thank God, because her cooking's really good. But I think when I went to OSU, then I decided to run for the National Junior Angus Association board, and that continued to open up a lot of avenues, because by that point I'd put together that, hey, I like judging livestock. I can really put a lot of these pedigrees together. I started to find a passion for communication and marketing, and trying to kind of build a better cow, basically, from my breeding decisions. And then when I was on the national junior board, you go to all these major events, major shows like Louisville, Denver, etc., and you really begin to build your own personal network of people. And so from those personal connections, then I realized, hey, okay, I really like cows, and I really like working with people that are knowledgeable, that I have the opportunity to get to know because of things like the National Junior Board. I wonder if I could put those two things together and have somebody help me run my cows.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where then it was like, oh, hey, cool, and then I graduated from college, and I had the opportunity to get my master's at Oklahoma State, and go on an international trip. And so it was just every place that I've ever gone that has been kind of an important um, point in my life has been surrounded by, you know, people that I've met, and those connections have helped me go to the next point and step in my life. And so it's just been kind of a neat journey, because as I've done that, then I've been able to build partnerships on individual cows. I have a cattle partnership in Canada. I've got ET calves in Minnesota. I've got, and so we've got different things to do this. But if it wouldn't have been for that willingness to think outside the box and team up in terms of partnerships, then Clinton Laflin probably doesn't have cows.
Yeah.
And so those partnerships, then I have cows, and I get done judging in college, and people are like, oh, hey, Clinton might do a good job judging this show. Well, so then, so my first major show I judge is in Mexico because of the people that I met on the international trip to New Zealand when I was doing my master's program at Oklahoma State. So, so really, I think it's anything that we do doesn't happen overnight. It's it's one of those things that you have to be willing to put your dreams in an oven, not a microwave.
I
And
love that.
yeah, yeah, so you have to have the discipline and the diligence to say, okay, I might be in this point right now, but where do I want to be in 6 months, a year, 5 years, and what are the things that I'm going to have to do to kind of start going that way? And you're probably, because I'm a prime example of this, I am nowhere near what I thought I was going to be doing or where I would end up when I first started this journey. But I've gotten to exactly where I've needed to be. And so the big thing is I just start. And you kind of have a plan, and you take advantage of those opportunities that are in front of you, and you have to build your own. And when you put those two things together, you're going to be a successful individual. Just be prepared for mountains, rivers, potholes, people shooting at you, figuratively, not actually. We hope, anyway. Uh, but
Unless you're maybe the nail
yeah,
now, but
yeah,
yeah.
right. Unless you're running from law enforcement or something, then we have a problem. But I think the big thing is that it's just been kind of a progression because never sell yourself short, because when I was in college, I never thought that I would be able to be judging shows on a national level or an
Hmm.
international level. But now I can say I've judged in 9 states in 3 different countries. And it's just because of my willingness to think outside the box, take risks, and get to know people. And I'm not talking about texting somebody on a phone. I mean going and taking producer visits, seeing them in their, looking them in their eyes and saying, okay, and just learning from them. And so, you know, probably 95% of what I've learned and taken back to my own set of cows has been because of herd visits that I've done,
Hmm.
because of beef industry events that I've attended, because of opportunities that I've taken advantage of while there. So big thing is I think if you are sitting there, in high school and college, in your late 20s after college, trying to figure out where you want to go, just start attending events that have interest for you.
Hmm.
And I think once you start to go to those, then you'll find people that have a similar interest as you. And then those are the things and those are the relationships that you can build on, both personally, professionally, and from a business standpoint.
Yeah, I seriously couldn't agree more. I think genuinely, like, the only reason that I am in the rooms that I am in now, in the chairs that I am in now, like all of those different things involved in the organizations that I am are because of my network and because of the people that I choose to surround myself with. And that really goes into a testament. I'd love to hear kind of like your insights and like your just talk a little bit more about like networking and the importance of that and like building your network, especially like you said, it doesn't matter as a young producer if you have a name or not. It's what you make for yourself.
Yep.
And it is what you do for yourself. Like, it sometimes, yes, it's nice to have a last name that you can throw around and like get yourself in the
Yeah.
room, but at the same time it's not a necessity. You can get yourself in those rooms by not having that. And
Right.
I think that networks are one of the most valuable things, especially in the agricultural industry. And I'd love to hear just kind of your insight on that.
Yeah, no, I think networking is so big, and one of the things that has really helped me is that when I got out of college, and I have a multi generational background in the ag industry, but when I got out of college and got into extension, I decided to basically start my own brand, start my own business, and kind of move away from the family. And everything is good with the family, but I wanted to see if I could kind of cut it on my own 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so the big piece of that success and kind of building is because of my network. And so, there could be some very foundational things of okay, follow through on what you say you're going to do, show up on time when somebody asks you for help. I cannot emphasize that enough. Show up on time. And if you do that and you can find ways to bring value to those people that are wanting that you are helping, then more people are going to want to help you. And so a lot of times people aren't going to meet you, you know, they have a willingness to meet you halfway. But you have to be willing to kind of work and help them, and so you kind of meet in the middle, and then you can build from there. And so really, just take, and my thing is I don't learn a darn thing if I'm sitting on the couch inside. And so, and I mean, we all have to have those days where we're like, okay, rest and be sharp, but also understand that you need to get out of your own little bubble and your own little world. And if you do that and you continue to meet people and are visible to others in the industry, then they start to pay attention to what you're doing. The biggest one of my dad's favorite things from when I was a kid that he absolutely hammered into my head and still reminds me of this at 35 years old is people do business first and foremost with you because they like you. Number two, they trust you. And number three, they respect you and your product works for them. Okay. So I think anytime you are, I don't care if you're selling widgets or Angus cattle or traveling or whatever you're doing, how can you build your product and kind of your network based on those three things, like trust and respect. And if you can do that, I don't care what industry you're in, you're going to be able to find people that are willing to help you.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so
Yeah.
true that just starting where you're at and building off of that, I think is so powerful because not only does it like start your network with where you're at and who you're surrounded with right now, but
Yeah.
then really just build it into something that is outside of your comfort zone. And yes, it's going to be scary. Yes, it's going to be like, I
Yeah.
have no business walking my butt up to this person and introducing myself in this
Sure.
conversation and all of these things. Like,
Sure.
yeah, that might be the situation. But at the same time, like, get over it. You're gonna go do it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you're gonna get your butt up, you're gonna go over there, you're gonna introduce yourself, you're gonna put yourself in this room and in these situations to grow and to expand. Like whether it's just like introducing yourself, just like from a point of like, hey, you're a really great person in this industry and I really like admire you. Thank you for being a light and an advocate for
Right.
agriculture. That's a great way to just like go and thank someone. Or it's
Yeah.
like just go and start having conversations with people and
Sure.
like in person. There's a lot of power of like doing it over social media and like having that network and stuff like that, but there is nothing in comparison to like going to an event like NCBA or an event
Yeah.
like just national cattle shows or national cattle like conferences and stuff like that, and just like getting involved and not being afraid to ask questions and not being afraid to just put yourself out there, and what might seemingly be embarrassing at the time will pay dividends in the end.
And I absolutely agree. And the one very vital piece that builds in your own personal toolbox is self confidence. If you have self confidence, I don't care. If you have self confidence, you'll be able to go meet the best looking person in the room, to the president of the United States, to some multi bazillionaire that is very, very successful and business savvy. But having that, so I guess all the way back down to the basics is okay. How do I build self confidence without becoming arrogant? and being willing to ask questions and get to know people on a personal level. One of the things that I've found the most success in, since I started my cattle business, CBRL, in since 2015, is that I came up with an idea with a couple buddies to every summer go on a summer trip. So what we do on that summer trip, we set up herd visits in a different part of the country. We're gone for about a week at that time, and so you just go and you set those up, and these could be any kind of operation or businesses that you admire, and take the time to go meet them. And if you can do that, then you are meeting people when they're the most relaxed, because they're on their home turf. And so being able to kind of learn from them and visually see what has helped them become successful, that is another way that I've really built up continually a better contact base, that I'm armed with, okay, I like how this person did this, I like how this person did that, and then you can meld that into your own business and kind of what you're doing at home. And so, that could be another way. You don't necessarily have to go to, ABC cattle breeder and spend 100K. You can go in and just get to know them. And I just bought bull semen on a guy that we toured a couple weeks ago for $25 a straw on one of the best bulls I've probably seen in a year. So, and I wouldn't know he exists if I wouldn't have gone and looked. And so just again, try to be diligent and focused on what your goals are, regardless of what it is, and just write those goals down, and just be okay with saying, okay, I'm fine if my goals don't turn out the way I think they will. I just have to be willing to get started. And then if you start and you put all those things together with discipline and focus, you're going to get to where you need to be.
Yeah. At the end of the day, starting is 9 times out of 10 probably the hardest step that you're
Hardest
going to
thing.
have to take, is
Yeah,
just putting that first foot forward, and just it goes right into the self-confidence of trusting in yourself and believing in yourself in that situation, that
yeah,
I am capable of doing this. I am capable of going and having this conversation. I am capable of starting this business. I am
sure.
capable of, no matter what people say my limitations are, of having a cattle ranch, even through
Right,
limitations and stuff like that.
right.
There are so many situations that all of this can be applied to, that there's a lot of power in just taking the leap of faith and taking that first step and being like, well, all right, God, it's in your hands. I took the step. Now what?
Right. Yeah, and it's one of those things. I'll kind of give you a little story. So first major show I judged in Mexico. Okay, this ages me, but it would have been 10 years ago, fall of 2014. Okay, and so I'm in Mexico, and I'm just about ready to judge, and I am like freaking nervous, and I'm like, and I end up puking before I go judge, but I have a driver take me to the show ring, and I'm ready for like freaking people to come out with firearms and knives, and I was so nervous going into that. And we get into the show ring, and show is supposed to start at 9. But remember, we're in Mexico, and so the whole meaning of time in old Mexico is just a little bit different than the United States of America. I'm used to people getting up at 4 a.m., getting their string ready, and I get out there, and literally there's nobody there except for a sound system guy playing Mexican rap in Spanish, testing out the sound system. And I'm walking around the ring, and I'm just laughing, because I'm like, just relax. Yeah, and so the whole thing, and I still get nervous when I did shows, but I really enjoy them now, because I have the self confidence in what I'm doing and what I'm capable of. But it just, I say that story because, it would be really easy to panic when you're that nervous. So figure out a way to fight through that and you'll be fine. But I was just thankful that I could have some tequila after I got done with judging that show, and 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 I've been back down there once. I've been back down there another time, but you never know where those doors are going to open, but you've got to get off your phone and you've got to get out of the house, and if you can do that, you're gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that just kind of like goes to a testament of if you're a person in agriculture that you feel like you're like, okay, like I want to do this thing, but like I don't know where to start. I don't have the connections. I didn't grow up in the industry, things like that. One of the biggest things for me was just like getting involved in college. And like, yes, I also came from
Yeah,
like a family that was extremely involved in the show industry and stuff like that and grew up in that. So I had a ton of connections through there too. But I also, as an adult, wanted to take the same path as Clinton and be like, okay, but I also want to like forge my own thing. Like, I also want to like make this my own.
sure.
And I'm not like following exactly in my father's footsteps. Like, yes, I'm pulling the legacy forward, like through the name of like my
Right.
media company and all of that stuff. But it's like I still wanted to make it my own. And so for me, it was getting involved in college was huge for me because like once you get to college and you get like involved in those different things, or like even if you're in your professional life, getting involved in like different events going on or different
Mhm.
professional development things or stuff like that. Like I know in the Midwest we have a ton of just like different professional development days that are just like agricultural based. Like I know water seminars are going on across the state of Kansas right now. Those are great networking events that you can go to and also like learn something as well. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and I mean, so I think it's just again, find ways that you can be involved in your local
mhm.
community and in college because I had a lot of those same things at Oklahoma State. I was involved in our Ag Communicators of Tomorrow club. I was involved in Block and Bridle, and so and those contacts. I mean, I still get together once a year with my three college roommates from Oklahoma State, and we typically go somewhere and just have a weekend to just hang out because we all live in four different states now. And so it's and I had a buddy in college just from college actually just buy a couple bulls from me just a week ago. So I mean, don't ever underestimate the power of those friendships and those networking opportunities that you have at those events because you never know how they're going to pay off later.
Yeah, for sure. I really attest a lot of like networking to be one of those slow burn items in your life, but such a necessary item. Like when you go and make these networking connections and stuff, it might not be something that pays dividends right then and there or even
Right.
within the next year, but you're going to look down the road in 5 years and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I have that connection that can connect me
Sure.
to this. Or like
Sure.
that person that I thought was going to be like a worthless connection almost was the person that like I attest my entire career to. Like they're the
Right.
whole reason that I am here today or things like that. So I think that there's a lot of power in like just putting yourself
Yep.
out there. And I really like how you hit on like it's not only taking that first step, but then it's followed up with the discipline and the drive and like
Yeah.
those daily actions and setting those goals. It's like, yeah, taking the first step is really scary, but then like after you take the first step, you got to keep walking.
Yeah.
Like
You got to take two,
even
three, four, five after that.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's and I think the other thing that yeah, when I was a kid, and I don't know if you had the same realization too, but when I was a kid, we'd go to shows, and I really I really wasn't aware of so many of the hardships that life presents. I'm not even just talking
hmm
about the cattle business and failure, and a calf dying or a business deal not going the way you thought it would, or there's gonna be, I mean, and I think that's where as I've aged, I've really gotten to the point where I just accept the fact that I'm going to try enough stuff that I am going to fail at some point, but I have to be okay with failing because
hmm
otherwise I'm not going to do anything. And so if I can build through that failure and be smarter next time, then I'm way better off than if I would have never tried, because I have that experience now to be like, oh God, that was a complete and epic disaster. Let's try that a little differently, or build on success. But understand that, okay, yeah, okay, long term, I this is going to be a success, and I'm going to be disciplined to make it that way. But also not forgetting the fact that, okay, I'm going to fail more than I'm going to succeed, and I'm okay with that. And if you're good with that, then you, even if some things fail, at the end of the day, you're going to be a success
Yeah. I
because
like
you're
how you said
trying.
like you're trying so many things that like you're guaranteed to fail. Like you're like
Yeah,
I'm doing so much that like the odds something's going to fail. Some of these things are going to fail and that's okay. And I think that there's so much growth in failure that even if you fail and it's like, okay, I'm not going to try this business again, you still learn from
sure,
failing. Like you
sure.
still learn from screwing up.
Sure, and even if you have to start over, you're not
Yeah.
starting over from scratch. You're instead starting over from experience.
Yeah.
And so my nickname for my dad is the Phoenix, because he has risen from the ashes of so many things that have gone haywire or not as expected. That
Mhm.
and he's a success. I mean, he's a business success. So both my mom and dad have been incredible role models in demonstrating what it looks like to push through failure. And so that's one of those things. If you don't take anything else from this interview today, just know that, okay, if I fail, I'm going to get up again and I'm going to try another way or another time. And if you keep doing that and learn from your experiences, you've beat 95% of the rest of the people on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to be the top 1% at something. Like just those
No,
daily actions of even doing something. What did they say? Like it takes like 30 hours of competitive repetition to be considered like a professional in something nowadays because so many people pick up things and then drop them so quickly that
right.
like it doesn't take forever in these aspects. Like it failure is good. Failure is a sign that you are
Right.
growing. Failure is a sign that you're trying something. And it took me a long time. Like, we can sit here and preach to you listeners all day long that like failure is good, like go out and like strive to fail. But also, like, it kind of sucks to fail. And I
Yes,
fully
it does.
acknowledge that, like, as a perfectionist and as a high achiever and stuff like that,
Yes, it
do
does.
I set out to fail? Absolutely not. I would be lying if I sat here and said, "Oh yeah, like I'm going to go build a business and it's going to fail today." And I have built businesses that have
And
failed
it failed.
and
Yeah,
it is not fun. In the
no,
depths of that crud, it's not fun and I
no,
fully acknowledge that. But I
no.
will say that if without those failures I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. Like I wouldn't be in the rooms and running the businesses that I am today that are so perfectly aligned with the way that God planned my life. And I know that
Absolutely.
like he placed those failures in my path so that like I could fail over that rock so that I could then climb over the mountain that
Yeah,
was up next. Like,
absolutely. And it does suck because you go into any situation thinking, "Oh my God, this is going to be the biggest success ever," but then but if you don't always set out to that, but if but if you just keep going, long term, like you said, it all kind of makes sense.
mm-hmm.
But it's damn painful to get there sometimes. But but also too, like if so I think that's where it's really important to say, okay, I'm not scared to make a change. If something if something isn't working, then okay, what do you have to do to say, okay, why do I keep hitting this wall? How do I pivot and change the outcome? And so, that's I think the step. If we have failure, how do we ask and change our kind of our steps to get to where we want to go?
Yeah. And change can be just as scary as failure sometimes. And I think like a big part of failure is accepting failure and accepting like sitting in that of being like, okay, so this didn't work out how I planned it to. what
No.
went wrong, where can I improve, where can I grow on this? Because if you don't let yourself sit in that, or like sit in that like self-reflection of that failure, then it's not going to be beneficial to you. It's just going to be like an X on the like card of life of, oh well, that failed and
Sure.
I learned nothing from it. Well, let yourself sit in that, and let yourself kind of sit in that suck, and let yourself grow and change from that. Because like, if you don't use that failure as a catalyst for change and for evolvement, then yeah, you're probably going to be in a situation where you're going to be like, yeah, it just wasn't it for me. And
Right.
but you didn't grow from it.
And there will be times, in my life where something doesn't go like I think, and I will have the most colorful language to describe that failure in the history of mankind, and it is definitely R-rated. But you can scream that at the top of your lungs, and you can still put one foot in front of the other outside of that. So yeah, so I mean, just I think that's where you have to say, okay, if you want to do something, try it and then keep going. And then if you feel like you need to make a change to another industry, do so. But don't be afraid to keep evolving in what you do.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to like our industry as a whole. As like individuals within agriculture, we can't be afraid of evolving as individuals and as an industry, because honestly, if we don't evolve as individuals, then our industry isn't going to be able to evolve.
Right.
And I think evolvement in agriculture is so important, because we do need to continue to be able to feed America and feed the world and do all of these things with, there's a ton of limitations that we are facing
Mhm.
currently. And I'm
Yep.
sure you are very familiar with all of that as an extension agent and talking
Sure.
about all of that stuff
Sure.
daily, that like we can't be afraid of change. We can't be afraid of evolvement, and just like not doing things the way that maybe we've done them for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and accepting that, maybe we didn't know all of the facts or all of the science, and maybe
Right.
it wouldn't hurt to try this new thing.
And what I wanted to do in college, and attend every show on God's green earth, and do that. I mean, my end goal has evolved over time, and so my operational goals have kind of changed with that change in focus. And so and it's one of those things. I mean, look at how much evolution there is in ag.
Yeah.
100 years ago, we couldn't imagine feeding, one farmer feeding almost 200 people a day, and now we are, and we have to continue doing that. So it's one of those things, guys. I think the biggest thing is just find how you can help other people, and if you can do that and lead by service, then you are going to be able to find something that you want to do, and it's going to be kind of a rewarding thing for you regardless of what industry it's in.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you brought up like the leading by service and by serving an industry. And I think that it's really important to remember that as you're going through life, that it's not all like, hey, this is my goal and this is where I want to end up. It's also like, okay, like let's look at the people around us too. Like, how can I
Yeah.
maybe serve, instead of maybe how can I serve myself? How can I serve my community? What are my community needs? And you would be amazed that sometimes, based off of that and getting out of your own head of like, this is what I want to do, and seeing like, okay, like how can my passions serve my community or my industry or stuff like that? And then you're going to look back in 5 years and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that was such a need within our industry, and I didn't
Yeah.
even realize it at the time, and I built a whole business around it, and now I have a success that not only serves people and serves an industry, but lights my soul on fire.
Right. And when you do that, we become fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can really find our purpose. And if we do that, then we as a world are much better off.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I could not agree more that just like as industries and as a world, we would be better off if we like just lead with those servant hearts. And as entrepreneurs, as young people in the industry, as like just people looking out to be that next generation of agriculture, I think it's really important to remember that it's not all about us all the time and what we
Right.
want. Although it is important to like be selfish in certain situations, at the same time, it's
Yeah.
like in this certain situation or in my life right now, where is one area that I can just go serve, that I can take time out of my day? I'm not getting paid. I'm just going to go do it because the world or the industry needs it.
Right.
And just find a way that you can continue to evolve yourself and like the people around you through that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would love to just kind of like round out the podcast a little bit and
Sure.
start to talk about what your piece of advice is for the next generation of agriculture. I know we've talked about a lot of things today, and I wrote down a lot of things of like,
Sure.
hey, this is what I'm saving for myself.
Yeah.
Clinton's probably given you like 50 pieces of advice today, but if you had to pick one or two pieces of advice to give to the next generation of agriculture, what would those be?
That's a really good question. And I think one thing that I have to always kind of remind myself and others is I think we have a tendency to not to think someone else knows how to do something better than we do, or maybe doubt our own abilities on something. And this is the, a self-doubt piece is something that I've struggled with my whole life. And so I think anytime that you can go into a situation and say, okay, I've done all the preparation for whatever I'm doing that I absolutely can. And if you are prepared for something and are knowledgeable on a subject, then you can go into that with peace. So I think my biggest thing is, okay, guys, again, be disciplined, but be ready for every opportunity that comes your way. And sometimes, like, I have had several opportunities that when they came up, I'm like, how on God's green earth am I going to pay for this?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where this all comes back to, okay, the question is, don't say I can't, ask how I can. Don't let the, oh God, this is scary, I'm never going to get out of debt, or I'm never going to do this, or don't ask that. Start to replace a negative kind of self-talk with a positive mindset. And if you start doing that, then those opportunities kind of present themselves, and you can figure out how to take advantage of something that maybe on the surface looks impossible. So just, I think the biggest change that I've had for myself in the last probably 2 years has been that I've really started to try to look at a developing a positive mindset over a self-doubt or a negative one. And so do the work on yourself first. And if you do that, on your mindset, working out, taking care of yourselves, that will help your mental health and your ability to look at the positives of potential situations and build yourself and your business.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you couldn't have summed it up better. I Everything that you just said just absolutely hit home, and I think that it is so important as people in agriculture to not be afraid of the topic of mental health, because guys, it is a thing in our industry. It is a thing in agriculture more than it is a lot of other professions. And we're just, the school of hard knocks, and the we'll
Right.
figure it out and just tough it out. And it's fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. It doesn't matter. All of those things. And the fact that you talked about improving yourself before you even try to improve your business or anything, and everything else in the grand scheme of things will flow from that. Like
Yeah.
if you improve yourself, your business is going to improve. If you improve yourself, the industry is going to improve. All of these different things that focus, like, be selfish in that aspect, that
Yeah.
carve out time to
Absolutely.
pour into yourself so that you have the ability to pour into other people.
Absolutely. And a second piece, just know that, hey, accept failure and keep pushing through it, and you're going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, eventually. Like, even if it's not the thing that you thought you were going to end up in at the start when you first started and writing that goal and stuff like that, at the end of the day, there like is power in the fact that like God has a plan. for all of us. And
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, we can make all the decisions that we want to, but we're going to look back in 5 years. And I never would have thought that I'd be in the seats that I am now
Yeah.
if you had asked me 5 years ago. And I can
Yes.
promise you that like this was not my plan. This was not my goal. This was not my plan. But hey,
Yeah.
here we are, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I think that there's a lot of like power behind that of like we're going to set these goals, we're going to strive for them, but at the end of the day there's also the surrender aspect of like we're going to fail, and those failures are going to lead to something so much better.
Absolutely. One day at a
Absolutely.
time.
Yes, one day at a time. Well, Clinton, I cannot believe that it's already been almost an hour.
Uh,
I that was probably the quickest hour of my life. It
Hopefully
was
nobody fell asleep.
Oh,
So,
I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that. But Clinton, thank you so much for taking
yeah.
time out of your day to come on today and just share your wealth of knowledge and inspiration and everything else that you kind of talked about and touched on today. I truly appreciate your friendship and
Yeah.
just your willingness to come on and share with our audience just about all of the things. So I will have any of Clinton's links, places you can get in touch with him, contact him, ask any questions, things like that in the comments down below. And please make sure you go follow along his journey, his life. Message him with any questions that you might have. And for all of you listeners out there, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Next Generation. And we will see y'all next week. We'll talk later. See ya.